Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Crypto Hipster Podcast. This is your host, Jamil Hassan, the Crypto Hipster, where I bring you amazing guests. I bring you founders, co-founders, entrepreneurs, executives, thought leaders all around the world in crypto and blockchain. And today I have another amazing guest. I have Ali Husain, who is an advisor with Navigate. I'm really excited about this interview. I'm going to learn, and we're all going to learn today what's going on with them. Ali, welcome.
Thank you so much, Jamil. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. So let's kick things off. And the basic question first is, what is your background, and is it a logical background for what you're doing now?
So my background is in computer science and economics. And after I graduated, I worked at Microsoft for a few years. And then it was in 2015 when I joined the startup world, joining a company called SparkCognition, which was, I think, a year or a year and a half old at the time. They had like 8 or 10 people. And this is a company that focuses primarily on industrial AI. So using AI to get insights and intelligence from large industrial assets like generators, so on and so forth. And this was also the time that I seriously got into crypto. I'd known about it since I was in college, and obviously, found the same things that I think a lot of people found interesting, like the fact that, the technology itself enabled you to not need to wait a week for your wire transfer to go through. So, things like that were interesting, but it was always kind of in the background. And, I was waiting for it to get to a stage where it became a part of our daily lives and so on and so forth. So, this is when, I got a house in Austin and got a few Litecoin miners and Bitcoin miners and started playing around with all that stuff and, dove into the world of all the coins. It was a fun time to do that because obviously 2017 happened. And then there was a not very fun time right after that. So I got pretty good exposure to the whole thing and, different cycles and the ups and downs and the, happiness and the depression that is crypto. So that was good. And then much recently, back in like 2020 is when I dove into NFTs. And that was primarily from I've always been a gamer all my life. That's why I studied computer science. I wanted to make my own games. And so I kind of see NFTs and digital ownership and digital assets. Obviously, there's the whole art factor, and that's fairly simple to explain and to understand. But from I think with any collector, actually, you have a very easy time explaining NFTs to them. Anyone who's collected comics or baseball cards or action figures or whatever. So I kind of entered that from an interest in gaming and to see what digital ownership would mean for players, and how you could have more ownership of something that you spent thousands and thousands of hours in, and at least not have it be so that one day eventually when someone pulls the plug on a server, everything that you've collected digitally has just gone away and ceased to exist. So then I kind of went down that rabbit hole, and obviously 2020, 2021 was a good time to do that, because then I found myself in the Bored Ape Yacht Club and a bunch of other NFTs, and now I'm too far down, so I'm like, this is it. So I don't know if the background makes sense, but I don't know if anyone's background makes sense to kind of go into crypto and be like, okay, this is it. I'm here now, and this is all I'm doing. But that's kind of how I ended up here.
You just added a couple follow-up questions to this interview. So I'm going to come to them a little bit later, but I'm intrigued now more. so to add these questions. So, but I want to start, like, I want to go to what, first of all, why we're here, and that's to talk about Navigate, right? So what is Navigate all about, and how is this platform, your platform, an improvement over what exists today?
That's a very good question. So, look, high level, Navigate is our attempt to create data sets that haven't existed before. What do I mean by that? What I mean is you have satellite imagery, you have street view imagery that exists today, but you could go to Google Maps or Bing Maps or Apple Maps, and depending on where you are in the world, you will see that coverage is not very fair. And what I mean is you could look at, Chicago or London or Berlin, and then you could look at a city in the Indian subcontinent, which might have, just a few 15 million people in the city, and the quality of imagery, even for satellite, is not going to be the same, or the rate at which that it gets refreshed at is not the same, even though there are, like I said, a ton of people there who would be needing and using that imagery. So Navigate basically, I think with some of the principles of Web3, especially around community ownership and decentralization, the idea just seemed like it made a lot of sense, where we want to get community members to contribute data, whether it's images from their phones, or it is dash cam or drone imagery data, as long as it meets certain quality, in the sense of minimum resolution, and the fact that you have GPS coordinates on those images in the metadata. You can submit it, contribute it to the Navigate ecosystem, earning tokens, and helping build, obviously, a higher fidelity, more frequently refreshed map of the world. So that is what I mean by the data sets, because we've been collecting data across a number of cities across the world, and the contrast that you see is really, really stark. I mean, I was talking about the Indian subcontinent. There's some imagery that we have from Lahore, where Bing Maps literally just shows you gray. Google shows you, a little bit more detail. You can see the buildings and all. And the imagery that we have on the Navigate side shows you that, 3 of these buildings have solar panels on them, and each of those solar panels have like 6 cells by 3 cells, the 6 by 3 wide, and so on and so forth. So you can get a lot more, and this is obviously aerial view. It's the same for, ground view, which you would get from a dash cam. You can extract a lot more information from these images. So I myself am based in Austin, where we have the good fortune of just ceaseless construction. So these days, one of the main highways, 183, is they're doing this lane expansion project. So you look at something like that, where thousands and thousands of people drive up and down 183 every day. And from the city's perspective, you could have, literally inspectors going up and down and real-time reporting the progress of a project like that. So being able to deliver those insights. And the other, and the last point that I'll add here is that, having worked in AI for the last 8-9 years, there's a lot of technology, and we're talking about this, AI is kind of cool again because of all of the generative LLM stuff, but there's a lot of work that's gone into extracting information from images, extracting information from videos, being able to, get more insights. And traditionally, the problem that you had as someone in the field of AI was, I was talking about all these generators and things. The problem is not having the right data. So with Navigate, we're in this, very enviable position of being able to create our own data set, being able to create the quote unquote perfect data set so that you can apply all of these great technologies and build something that's living and breathing.
Sounds great. I think when I looked at the questions, when I came up with the questions, I thought, okay, you're in Austin, but you're talking about the whole world. So, this question makes more sense now, but the next one may not. We'll see. Like, how much of an epidemic is obsolete mapping data today globally, I guess, in the broader macroeconomic landscape, as far as improving infrastructure and other challenges? And I'm sure there's lots of other challenges.
I don't know if I could give you exact numbers, but I can, give you anecdotal information from people I've spoken to and what I've seen personally. I do think it is a problem. I think, speaking to folks in the US, for example, or anywhere in North America, satellite imagery is pretty good. Like, you get to see a lot of details. And like I said, if you're in, big cities, they get covered very frequently, and the image data gets refreshed. But even here, like SparkCognition has a facility outside of Austin, Texas. It's a test facility where we do a lot of prototyping and so on and so forth. It's located in Florence, Texas. So when the buildings were going up and when there was a bunch of construction happening, I was on the phone with Best Buy ordering some stuff, and I was like, hey, it'd be great if you guys could just deliver it, at this address. And so the lady on the phone says, could you repeat that? So I gave her the address again, and she's like, I can't have this delivered here. There's nothing out there. So I was like, what do you mean there's nothing out there? And she's like, well, I'm looking at the maps right now, and this is just, farmland. So it's like, I mean, it used to be, but it's not now because we have a couple of buildings. I mean, I've just come from there, so I don't know what you're talking about. And she's like, well, I have to go on some of this data, and because I can't see anything there, I can't have it delivered to that address. So I ultimately had those being delivered to my place and took them over and so forth. So my point is that even here, in the US, you see examples of this, but you go to other continents outside of North America, you look at Africa, you look at Asia, you look at the just the Indian subcontinent, which will now be close to 2 billion people. The coverage is not at all very good. And you can, just do a quick experiment with this by literally loading up Google and Bing side by side. In some places in the States, it'll be, interesting to see that Bing gives you better coverage than Google. But when you go global, it's just, I mean, it's really, really poor coverage. And I think that is something that needs to be improved, especially as these areas get developed and there is more demand for, goods and products coming out of people who live there. There is more being invested in infrastructure, so on and so forth. So I think, now's kind of the time to get in and improve all of that.
I was listening to you, and I remember back in 2004, I was backpacking in Southeast Asia. We took a truck ride from a pickup truck ride from Angkor Wat to the Thai border. 2 hours in the back of a truck, got totally caked. There was no roads. There was just dirt. So that was fun. So, how about, that's the macroeconomic environment. How about the micro? Like, how do individuals start to participate in this data capture and ownership process, right? You said it's decentralized, so they can build businesses and opportunities in Web3.
Yeah. So the way that it's all kind of architected right now is obviously the consumers are the contributors are kind of the backbone of the whole ecosystem. by providing images and imagery that is might even be of the same place but at different points in time. That is valuable because you don't need to just capture a place once, right? The whole idea and model here is that you capture the same place again and again and again, so you can kind of create these models that show you changes over time. They could show you, the state of a city prior to and after a really bad thunderstorm, so on and so forth. Just some random examples there. So in order for us to get contributors on board and to hit critical mass, this can't be Web3 only. People in Web3 get the value prop in terms of, this is data that you contribute, that if it is used by anyone to build an app on top of, and as the Navigate ecosystem grows, you start to benefit more and you get rewarded more. So that's one piece, right? Like, you're not just giving away data for free. And a great example of this is Waze. That eventually then got acquired by Google. But there, one of the things that people loved about it was, hey, if you open up Waze, you can see where the cops are, or you can see where there's a traffic accident that just happened. And that was all crowdsourced. And to my knowledge, the contributors who were contributing that data didn't really get anything in that $1 billion acquisition, or even prior to that. So that's kind of one piece that I think resonates with the Web3 crowd. It makes sense to them just because of where they are. On the Web2 side, and especially I think in the climate that we're in, tokens and all of that stuff gets hard to explain. So one of the things that we did was we launched the Navigate marketplace, which allows you to go in, as you are earning these tokens off of your contributions, you can redeem these tokens as you would any reward points for gift cards at retail stores. And so that's a model that obviously has existed in the past, done very well. People understand it. It's not complicated to explain. And that's kind of more geared towards, the Web2 native audience. So that you can kind of see a line from, okay, if I give you an image, what do I get? Well, if you give me X images, you get a gift card. So that's kind of how we're, building it out at the micro level when it comes to contributors. And then you talked about applications. Obviously, the Navigate Foundation is building the first set of applications on top of this platform. But as the ecosystem grows, the whole idea is to get developers onboarded, to add, to make available all of this data, the raw data. And then the foundation would also want to make available these AI pipelines that we're talking about, right? Ones that will get insights from these images and the video, et cetera, to allow individuals to build their own dApps. And when you do that, if I as a developer use a lot of imagery that you've uploaded, when people use my application, and they're obviously dealing in Navigate tokens, you will get some of the royalties rather than, and this is just kind of a, you can draw similar to the Apple model, where instead of 30% going to Apple, you have percentages going to people who made your app possible by providing you the core data.
Interesting. You said individuals using dApps. You also said, I think I've been on Facebook since 2008 or 2007. So I I take the data and the raw data for granted, right? I guess I kind of neglect that data, and a lot of people neglect the importance of data. How can people take that neglected data and the individual dApps, and then build opportunities? How do you take neglected data and create utility?
Yeah, and look, I think there's a lot of data generally that exists, right? One of the things I mentioned earlier on was you can contribute stuff that's on your phone or you capture from your phone. Now, what do I mean by that? Um, all of us have tons of pictures that we've taken when we've visited certain places that don't have people in them. We've just kind of captured the setting or captured the scenery or seen a shop that had a cool display and taken a picture of that display. There's so much of this. I like how you labeled it neglected data. There's so much of this just lying around that a contributor could just upload to navigate and help kind of fill in more details on this global map, number one. So that's kind of an example of how you would be able to get something out of something that you already have collected. There's no effort other than oh, these are some pictures that I can put up there. The other piece, and maybe I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent when you mentioned Facebook, is I think we have for a long time ignored, just how much data we generate and we put out there. And I think that is something that obviously in the Web3 ecosystem, people are paying slightly more attention to, but even in the Web2 ecosystem, folks are being forced to pay attention to that. Whether it's stuff like even ChatGPT and how much of your conversations it retains for the purposes of training or whatever it has to do. And then what Elon did recently with Twitter, now X, where all of the rate limiting started because he's like, all of these big companies are mining Twitter data and using that to build their own stuff. And then you have WorldCoin as an example of another big data mining project. So, and you can kind of debate the, what will all of that data be used for, etc. Is this good? Is this bad? But the fact of the matter is that I think I read yesterday that this was maybe the Kenyan government that had put a stop to WorldCoin operations there. But the people in Kenya, I think there were already more than 250,000 people who had signed up and gone there and kind of given that data of their own free will. So I think we will have to start being more mindful of what data we are generating and putting out there in the open. That's just that is a side effect of being connected. And there is nothing you can do to, stop generating that data. But we can all be more aware as to where it is living, what someone is doing with it. And then lastly, I think it's also time to start benefiting from data that we generate. If that's something that, a big corporation is using to create a product or better their product. Elon's argument literally is that models like ChatGPT wouldn't exist if you didn't have, crazy amounts of data on Twitter to mine. So that product exists because of that underlying data to some extent. So, not ignoring the individuals and being able to reward them for something that now they are consciously contributing rather than, hey, I read this long, I read this long user license agreement. And of course, I accept the terms. I don't know what the hell they said, but I'm not going to read a million words in 2-point font. So I just wanted a Facebook account. So things like that.
I'm going to touch on some of this follow-ups, but you said the magic word right there. You said WorldCoin. I wanted to get your perspective from an ethics perspective. I saw this launch on a Monday. I saw it launch overseas. They're capturing data. And I saw that some of the VCs involved were the 3AC guys and Sam Fried. And I said, I questioned the ethics of the launch. What do you think are are the benefits and disadvantages of it from an AI perspective? And what are your thoughts?
I don't know enough about it. I haven't followed it super closely, but just very high level, it's not something that appealed to me. I get I think, and like I said, because I don't know a lot about it, I might be getting this wrong, but this whole idea of proving identity using, someone's iris. Um, I don't know how that data is stored. I don't know how fault tolerant it is. I think it was Vitalik who made this point around you could hack one of these terminals and just generate fake world IDs for a bunch of people. So I don't, I don't think, number one, depending on the implementation, this is the best, most foolproof implementation. I can theoretically see that if there was this perfect system and we had the entire world's population's irises scanned, and there could be no more bots. I totally get that kind of stuff. But the thing is that I don't think such absolute solutions exist, number one. So it's always going to be this iterative thing of doing slightly more than we did yesterday to, counteract either fake data that's being generated in terms of news, or fake accounts that are pushing narratives like, bot accounts and so on and so forth. And there was recently a very interesting paper that was published on the fact that you can, depending on how you interact with these large language models, like GPT and Llama, etc. And how they're not supposed to give you harmful answers. And there's a lot of debate happening on that side of things as well, AI ethics and so on. But depending on how you kind of massage your input query, you could, and in that research paper, they had an LLM generate an ad for drunk driving, encouraging drunk driving. So the thing is that, that kind of stuff exists. My personal view on this is that technology has been, and always will be a tool. You can use it for good, or you can use it for evil. But saying we shouldn't, make a sharper knife until we can ensure that everyone uses the knife the right way, well, you can't do that. I mean, people will use knife to cut butter, and people will use knife to hurt other people. You can't, you can't have such stringent checks. I don't think there's a way to do that globally. So I think the technology needs to advance in parallel, and we need more education. And if we have more education, and if we understand what it is we're using, and we understand what it is that something can do, then in my personal view, that's the best way to protect ourselves against the fake or harmful stuff that can be generated from something like that.
I agree with you 100%. Yeah, that makes all the world of sense to me. Now, we talked about, a lot of the utility and, new industries. We also said a lot of the data collection has been in urban zones, right?
Yeah.
And mentioned India earlier, and I don't get the opportunity much to talk to people, ask people questions about smart cities. I don't know if you're too familiar with the Smart City Initiative in India over the past decade, but I wanted to get your thoughts on how Navigate could help with something like that, with the non-urban center becoming an urban center, and how your Navigate system would be able to help industries or areas like that to become more streamlined industrial.
Yeah. I'm familiar with the concept of smart cities, worked on some of that stuff during some of my career. Not terribly familiar with all the details of the Indian smart cities that you're talking about, or the ultimate kind of goals there. But yes, absolutely. I think something like Navigate, especially in the data that is collected and the frequency at which it is refreshed, enables the concept of a smart city, because you can have, smart cities have everything from intelligent, information around parking in different zones of the city, and what area is occupied, what percentage occupied, and how busy a particular place is, and so on and so forth. So I think these are all insights that I was talking about earlier, that you can generate and extract when you have the raw data to do so. For example, if you cover the same place, let's say you cover the same McDonald's over the next couple of weeks and during different times in the day, if you have that data, after 2 weeks, you can, ask questions off of that data, like, what's the best time for me to go to this McDonald's? When is it least crowded? When is that line, drive-through line not super long? Things like that. And that only happens when, like I said, you have the data being collected over a certain period of time, so that then you can make predictions from it.
Got it. So I have three less questions, but I want to go back to something you said really early on when you first got into the industry, because you said you got into Litecoin mining, and I haven't interviewed anybody who was a Litecoin miner yet. So now, I have you on the call. So yesterday there was a halving event, how do you think that's going to benefit the industry? And Bitcoin has one next year. What are the benefits of, the mining? How do you think Litecoin's mining is going to go for the future? And then how do you grab that data and bring that over to Web3 so people can build on top of it? If they're not a miner, how can they use it?
I haven't touched Litecoin mining in 8 years. And my Litecoin mining story was, it was interesting, but it was short and sweet. I had just moved into the house and got a bunch of these, ant miners, set them up. It was fun. They were generating Litecoin. It was way too noisy. And so I received an ultimatum from my wife that these things would have to find new homes. And so then I started that project. But I haven't been keeping up a lot with Litecoin stuff. I keep up with Bitcoin, Ethereum, and for a while there, I was, during the whole 2016, 2017 phase, looking at different ICOs, looking at altcoins. But over the last few years, it's purely been Bitcoin, Ethereum, and NFTs. So and even ordinals on the Bitcoin side, but sadly, I'm very out of the loop on Litecoin stuff. I did know about the halving, but I don't know anything more than that.
Got it. Thank you. All right. So, well, Bitcoin, Ethereum, the value of investments, we want users to take back control of their data, and Web3 is a good do that. How do you incentivize them beyond? Of course, you want to incentivize them with crypto, but how do you incentivize people to get them to shift their paradigm to be able to take that step where they embrace the capture of this data for themselves?
That's a very good question. I think ultimately it's something that needs to matter to each individual, because, like you said, it's not about the just the potential monetary gain, or giving someone the ability to redeem physical items for their contributions. I think what I would say on that is that the kind of stuff that I don't know if you're familiar with, you might be, but Punk 6529 and the work that he's doing with the open metaverse and all of that kind of type of stuff, where the idea is that we start creating these decentralized frameworks, and you give people the option to participate in them. But ultimately, it all boils down to free choice and free will. And for some folks, this will resonate with them, and it'll be something that they really want to do, and they can see how this would, improve the kind of products that we have out there, how it would make things more, put everyone on a more equal footing. It would kind of, be fighting against the data monopoly that exists today. But for a lot of other folks, it's always that cost benefit thing, right? Like, what have we gotten out of giving all of this data? And the answer is we've gotten a lot of convenience. I mean, I use Gmail, I use Outlook. I know that those emails are scanned to generate specific targeted ads towards me. But knowing that, I still use both of those services. So ultimately, it has to come down to, what you want to do with, the data that you are collecting and generating for the future.
Got it. Same with me. Awesome. So I want to thank you very much for your time today. This has been an enjoyable, fun conversation for me. I learned a lot too, and appreciate your time. It's been great. And I have one last question. It's, how can people find out more information about you, about Navigate? How can they start to join your guys' journey? How can they do any of that?
The best place to find out about Navigate and all of the details around contributing to the ecosystem, etc., they're all on the site and in our docs. And then once you're on the site, you can hop into Discord and just talk to people and learn more there. The website is nvg8.io. So that's really the place to start if someone is interested in finding out more.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you so much. It was great fun.